In August 1978, something happened on the Billboard Hot 100 chart that had never happened before and has never happened again in the nearly 50 years since. We are going to talk about it. Hey there, Swan Shadow here. Welcome to the nest. I am always fascinated by weird historical things related to music, particularly in the classic period of the 1970s and 80s. And having worked in radio for a while during that period, I have a particular fascination with the Billboard charts, the Hot 100 singles chart, and the Billboard 200 albums chart, that sort of define and record what music is popular in the US market at a given moment in time. Speaking of those charts and those uniquely preserved moments, there's one really cool anomaly that happened in the summer of 1978, a time when I was laser focused on paying attention to music, something that had never happened before and interestingly has never happened again since. For the week of August 12th, 1978, there were 14 songs that occupied the top of the Billboard Hot 100. The following week, the week of August 19th, 1978, the exact same 14 songs in the exact same order held those same 14 top spots. The phenomenon came to be referred to as the Frozen 14. It remains the only time in the history of the Billboard charts that a block of 14 songs held the top of the Hot 100 for 2 consecutive weeks with no internal movement among them, same songs in the same order. There have been other frozen groups to lead the chart, 6 songs, 7 songs, even 8 songs, but never anywhere close to 14. What stands out to me about the Frozen 14 is not just the fact that this group of songs got stuck on the chart for 2 weeks. Rather, it's the picture of popular music at that time that's really fascinating. It's a diverse group of songs. There's pop, there's classic rock, there's disco, southern rock, R&B, there's a movie soundtrack theme song, there's even what we might call yacht rock today. A little bit of everything. It's a snapshot of the late 70s, frozen, if you will, for posterity. So let's go back and look at those 14 songs and see what they tell us about the moment in which they got frozen. The number 14 song, the bottom rung of the Frozen 14, is I'm Not Gonna Let It Bother Me Tonight by the Atlanta Rhythm Section. The second single from ARS's best-selling album, Champagne Jam, it's very typical of the kind of thing the band was known for. Southern rock, but in a smoother, jazzier kind of vein. Number 14 would be as high as this one got. After its 2 weeks of frozen glory, it would fall completely out of the top 40 the following week. The number 13 song in the Frozen 14 is My Angel Baby by Toby Bo. It took me more than 4 decades to learn that Toby Bo was the name of a band and not the name of a person. Toby Bo, the band, hailed from southeastern Texas, and apparently they took their name from a fishing boat that worked on the Gulf Coast. My Angel Baby, a rather unremarkable pop ballad, was their one and only top 40 hit. No real surprise there. The number 12 song in the Frozen 14 is Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh. Now, I love me some Joe Walsh. He's one of my all-time favorite guitarists, going all the way back to his days in the James Gang. I've seen Joe perform live a number of times over the years, and the man just flat out loves to play. Life's Been Good documents his well-deserved reputation at the time for living the rock star life to its wildest and craziest. Fortunately, Joe eventually got sober, which is the reason he's still in the game today. Life's Been Good remains Joe's biggest solo hit. The number 11 song in the Frozen 14 is Hopelessly Devoted to You by Olivia Newton-John. This frothy little country pop ballad is the first of two songs in the Frozen 14 from the soundtrack of the film Grease. And if it doesn't sound a lot like most of the rest of the songs from Grease, there's a good reason for that. Olivia Newton-John's contract for the movie guaranteed that she would have a showcase solo song on the soundtrack. But they had pretty much filmed the movie and there was still no song. Olivia's music producer, John Farrar, wrote this song and gave it to the producers of the movie, who, well, let's just say they weren't all that thrilled with it. But you know, a contract's a contract, so Olivia got to perform her song. It made it into the movie, and of course, it was a massive hit. It peaked at number 3 on the Hot 100. The number 10 song in the Frozen 14 is An Everlasting Love by Andy Gibb. Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees wrote and produced this song for his little brother. It would become the 4th of 9 top 40 hits on the Billboard chart for Andy. This one would eventually peak at number 5, after his previous 3 singles had all gone to number 1. He was the first male solo artist ever to have 3 consecutive songs top the Hot 100. I'm afraid I don't have a lot of everlasting love for this song, so we'll move along. The number 9 song in the Frozen 14 is Magnet and Steel by Walter Egan. Another one-hit wonder, Magnet and Steel would mark Walter Egan's only foray into the top 40, climbing all the way to number 8. Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac co-produced this song and also plays guitar and sings backing vocals. Stevie Nicks also lends her unmistakable voice to the background. One could very easily imagine this as a Fleetwood Mac song if it weren't for the lead vocal. Here's an interesting bit of trivia about Walter Egan. In the mid-1980s, years after his music career had cooled off, Egan was a contestant on a couple of TV game shows, Catchphrase and Scrabble. Now, I don't know whether either Magnet or Steel came up as an answer on either show, but it would have been pretty funny if they had. The number 8 song in the Frozen 14 is Copacabana by Barry Manilow. Are you a Fanilow? If you are, you probably know this song backward and forward. As the story goes, Manilow and his lyricist Bruce Sussman were vacationing in Rio de Janeiro at the original Copacabana when they got the idea for a song using the name. Sussman and his writing partner Jack Feldman came up with the lyrics, and Manilow wrote the music. It's the song that won Manilow his one and only Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance. Despite the fact that it tells a rather violent and ultimately sad story, Copacabana has enjoyed a remarkable afterlife. It was adapted into a TV special in 1985. Which in turn became a full-length stage musical that ran for 2 full years in London's West End. And if you're ever dying to hear Manilow perform Copacabana live, well, he's right down the road here in Las Vegas at the Westgate Hotel, performing nightly in the same theater that Elvis Presley made famous. The number 7 song in the Frozen 14 is Love Will Find a Way by, well, Pablo Cruise. Like Toby Bo, Pablo Cruise is the name of a band, not a guy. Unlike Toby Bo, I've known this one all along because Pablo Cruise were local favorites in the San Francisco Bay Area when I was in high school. Although we didn't have the term at the time, Love Will Find a Way is a quintessential yacht rock song. It epitomizes the cool, jazzy smoothness that defines that genre. Love Will Find a Way would reach number 6 on the Hot 100, equaling What You Gonna Do as Pablo Cruise's highest charting hits. Incidentally, Pablo Cruise, led by original members David Jenkins and Corey Larios, still performs live. I saw them last year here in Las Vegas, and they still sound terrific. The number 6 song in the Frozen 14 is Boogie Oogie Oogie by A Taste of Honey. One of the most enduring hits of the disco era, Boogie Oogie Oogie, man, I really dig saying that title, would ultimately spend 3 weeks at number 1 on the Hot 100, as well as topping both the Billboard Soul and Disco charts. The song would become Capitol Records' first ever double platinum single, selling more than 2 million copies. The album, A Taste of Honey's self-titled debut, also went platinum and earned the band the Grammy Award for Best New Artist. A Taste of Honey was fronted by bassist and lead vocalist Janice Marie Johnson, a powerhouse on both instruments, alongside guitarist Hazel Payne. Johnson's irresistible bass line, I know you can hear it in your head right now, was what made the song iconic. It's been featured in dozens of films and TV shows over the decades. The number 5 song in the Frozen 14 is Hot Blooded by Foreigner. Finally, we get some rock and roll up in this piece. Hot Blooded was the first single off Foreigner's second album, Double Vision, and it immediately announced that the band's debut record was no fluke. From the chugging riff that opens the track, to Lou Gramm's impassioned vocal, to Mick Jones's awesome guitar solo, this was what rock sounded like in 1978, and few were doing it better than Foreigner. Hot Blooded would get up to number 3 before its chart journey finally ran its course, and the single would certify platinum. I mean, I played this song probably 1,000,000 times all by myself. The number 4 song in the Frozen 14 is Miss You by the Rolling Stones. Now, be honest, did you ever think you wanted to hear the Rolling Stones make a disco record? Well, whether we wanted it or not, the Stones gave it to us in '78 with Miss You. And since the song peaked at number 1 the week prior to the Frozen 14, I guess a lot of people did want to hear the Stones go disco. Now, I wasn't then, and I am not now, much of a Stones fan, but I do appreciate the work of the rhythm section here. Bill Wyman on bass and Charlie Watts on drums. They created a groove that dozens of other acts would copy during the disco phase. The number 3 song in the Frozen 14 is Last Dance by Donna Summer. When an old school rocker like myself wants a dose of disco, I usually turn to the queen of disco herself. Last Dance, the highlight of the soundtrack to the film Thank God It's Friday, is not really a typical disco track. It starts out as a lush ballad, beautifully sung by Miss Summer, before it kicks in the afterburners and leaps onto the dance floor. It was a successful approach that Miss Summer would employ on several of her subsequent hits. Although Last Dance would peak at number 3, it would carry home a slew of awards, an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for Best Original Song, a Grammy for Best R&B Song, and the Grammy for Summer herself for Best R&B Vocal Performance by a Female Artist. And it wasn't even the biggest movie hit in the Frozen 14. The number 2 song in the Frozen 14 is Grease by Frankie Valli, a theme song from a movie set in the 50s that sounds absolutely nothing like the 50s. Grease nevertheless became a number 1 smash that sold more than 7 million singles. I want to knock it because it's really not my thing. Plus, let's be honest, we've all heard it far more times than we ever would have cared to, but the numbers don't lie. It's kind of a weird song because it doesn't really fit into the movie it came from. It was one of 4 songs that were written for the film that weren't in the original musical. Plus, Frankie Valli of the Four Seasons, like an old school doo-wop singer, performing what's essentially a pop disco tune, that combination just shouldn't work. And Well, for me it doesn't, but again, the numbers don't lie. And the number one song in the Frozen 14 is 3 Times a Lady by the Commodores. Okay, now forget for a moment that you ever heard Eddie Murphy on SNL singing this in his buckwheat persona. Just try to appreciate the subtle beauty of a song that Lionel Richie wrote to honor his wife, and that he originally didn't intend for the Commodores to perform. He envisioned pitching it to Frank Sinatra, of all people. But when the Commodores' producer, James Anthony Carmichael, heard Richie demo the song, he insisted that the Commodores use it, which they did, and they got a 2-week number one hit atop the Frozen 14. 3 Times a Lady also topped the Billboard R&B chart, and, if you can believe it, the country chart as well. Which just goes to show you, a great song is a great song, no matter what box you put it in. And that's the story of the Frozen 14. Which of these tracks do you recall the most fondly? Which do you never need to hear again? What were the songs that surprised you in this unique group of 14? Share your thoughts in the comments, and while you're down there, why not hit the like button and also subscribe to this channel. Until next time, be well, and hey, is there gas in the car? Yes, there's gas in the car.